Hello, YouTubers. This is the 23rd session in our continuous effort. Ricardo, Mahdi, and I, and everybody else that's contributing to the decentralized open source social media platform Ta'arafu to deproductize humanity. And the last time, Ricardo and I were working on the validation aspect. So we did the happy path where you pass in an ID and you try to delete a post, and then we're doing the not so happy path, which is when you passing in an invalid ID, and we structurally validate that before we pay the ticket to go and call an API endpoint. And today we're going to handle all the API exceptions, right? So every API out there can throw a whole bunch of different exceptions. And there's a lot of, talks around, what's it going to take to kind of handle an API, exception. You'll see a lot of people going and saying, okay, let's just handle all the exceptions in one bucket, and let's just say catch exception, and then we just say oops, something went wrong. But sometimes these exceptions warrant different actions. The actions might be required from the engineering group that's supporting the system, or the exception might be because the user themselves, they have submitted a bad request, or passed in a bad ID, or sometimes the exception is a leakage or a problem in the hosting service itself. This is where this issue gets passed down to the, if you're deployed to Azure or AWS or Google Cloud, whatever cloud system you're using, you're going to need to open up a ticket and say my app service or my container is experiencing issues, and this is something out of our control. This is why we have this service exception in there to handle that. Now, for the people watching us, there's so many different exceptions that may come out of a particular API, right? The ones we care about, there are ones that we have programmed in, like bad request exception, there's dependency validation exceptions, all these things. And there's also, the exceptions that, we didn't really create or program against, but they happen due to the communication stuff, like authorization exception, like your API is not able to authenticate against the API that you're working with. So you're going to have to kind of figure out a way to, handle that exception and log it as critical and say something terrible is going on. And there's, of course, the catch-all. The catch-all was just with where the exception, generic level of exceptions, things that are happening, and we want to basically be able to handle that. So here's just a quick overview for people, and also a quick reminder, just so people understand where we're coming from. I'm gonna go here to a web page. I'm gonna navigate that white fire grid people call the internet, right? And let's just go here and share that screen here, and let's just see what did I and Ricardo program to basically get the get our Raffle Core API to communicate particular exceptions. So ideally, just so everyone understands, ideally here is that the users should not feel that you're actually making API communications whatsoever. So whatever these exceptions are that are coming from your client, your API communication client, they will be localized and categorized, so they can continue upstream to your other services. But let's just see here what Ricardo and I did last time. We basically built this endpoint here called delete post by ID asynchronous. And then we basically said, well, there's the case where post validation exception not found exception. So we want to handle this piece.
Mhm.
We want to be able to handle a validation exception. We're going to handle this piece. This will translate to an invalid post exception, and then we turn it into a dependency validation exception. And then there's also this piece here where we're throwing locked exception. We're going to need to handle that on our side. And then the last ones in here are basically the service exception, like dependency validation exception, post dependency. This is the ones that we care about here are the ones that have different, signatures. So internal server error, bad request, locked, bad request, not found. These are the ones that we want to basically take care of. But before we do those, just like we did with the other foundation service, remember how we were handling SQL exceptions, right? We were
Yeah.
handling communication exceptions. We need to take care of that first before anything else. Now, a little bit of history here about API communications. Back in the olden days, and you'll still see that in some software today, people spin up their own API client, right? They go spin up their own API client, and because they're working on this project, they don't have the time or the effort or the energy to handle every other exception out there. And then you end up with infinite number of little tiny APIs, right? that may or may not handle all the exceptions that you may or may not need. Instead, I went out there and built a simple library called RESTful Link. RESTful Link is basically, sorry, RESTful Sense. RESTful Link is another one. RESTful Sense, it's basically a library that will help you map every error code that you may receive into an appropriate exception. What that basically means, let me zoom in here a little bit just so people can see us. And let me bring this guy in here just a tiny bit like this. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here it is. So whatever exception, whatever error code that happens in your API communication, it will take that error and communicate. First of all, it will handle your problem detail, which is something that's really important, and we're going to talk about as well, in a little bit. But every exception in here will be, every code will map into a proper exception. So this way, you don't even have to worry about what's going on behind the scenes in terms of, what error code your API is throwing. You're actually throwing, the client is already doing that work for you, and all you have to do is just handle that exception appropriately. Okay, so far so good.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get started. I'm going to write a failing test, and then you're going to make it pass, and we're going to go back and forth. So the first one is the most critical ones. We always start with the most critical ones because this is where all of this coming from. I can't actually successfully make an API communication unless I have successfully did the authentication with this API. Now, remember, we didn't really establish the security part yet. I'm gonna have to have a special series for that. But we are handling this because once it's established, I don't have to go through some 50 other services and modify the code to handle that part of exception. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take a copy here of this existing test. I'm gonna go here and create a new file. And this time the file is gonna be called exceptions dot remove exceptions dot remove by ID. Okay, so that's the first one. So what are we going to do about this one? Let's go up in here and do two things. If you are doing a delete or doing a an update or a post, then you're definitely doing a request of some kind, right?
Yeah.
Delete underneath is actually doing some sort of a post. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna do a theory in here. Ricardo, did we do theory together before? I think we did, right?
No, sure. This will be the first.
Okay, and that's okay. Here's what we're gonna do, my friend. I want to handle multiple exceptions that may happen the exact same way. So I could have multiple
Yeah.
exceptions, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to handle these exceptions the exact same way. There's something in XUnit called theory, and theory allows you to pass in multiple data points that are supposed to result in the exact same result. Theory in unit tests can be represented in many different ways. There are calculated values and there are hard-coded constant values. For instance, I can go in here and say inline data like this, and I go and say, well, what if it's null? What if it's empty? What if it's white space? This is inline data that doesn't need any calculations.
Mm-hmm.
And this way you can go here and say public async task my test, and then you pass in the invalid value in here. And that invalid value, you're gonna take that value. So it's gonna, this here creates three different tests, and each one of them is passing you one of these values in here as an input parameter. So it's basically saying whatever that input parameter is, we're going to examine with all these different input parameters, and the end result has to be exactly the same. Cool? So that's one
Cool.
way. There is the calculated values, where you go and you say something to the effect of member data. And this member data will tell you, give me a name of a method that returns theory data, and that's calculated data. For instance, I can go here and say public, it has to be public, and then it returns theory data, right? And this theory data, let's see, bad cases of whatever, right? And I can go
Yeah.
here and say, okay, these are the bad cases that I don't care about, and I need to calculate these values, so it can't just be hard-coded in. So I can go here and say return new theory data, and maybe the values that I'm returning are all different kinds of string calculations. And I can go here and say maybe this is null, maybe this is empty, maybe this is white space, and maybe this is a random, like empty plus random value that's going on here. like this. So you see how this guy now is calculated. It's testing different cases. I can go here and say string, random value, whatever, whatever is going on in here, right? So this way, basically, now this little method here, I can pass that method as an input parameter to this guy, just like this, right? And now I can go and say, I'm sorry, is it supposed to be, so bad cases, public static, I think. Yeah, there you go. So this basically here is going and saying this is the cases that I need to handle in this case here, right? Let's see why this guy is mad. Oh, I need to close the door. There you go. So basically so what this is doing is basically calculating different cases and it's basically running it. The beautiful thing about this guy, some other way that you can leverage this guy is that if you don't want to keep retyping the exact same cases for different tests, like for instance, let's say a string cannot be null, empty, or white space for both the post and the put cases. So when you
Mm.
update or when you add, right? In that case, it makes sense that you use something like bad cases so you can go and say, I don't want to repeat those. However, and I'm going to tell you, this is my kind of school of thought. When I'm reading a test, unless you absolutely need to abstract away the values, it's much better that you keep these two together like this so people can see what the test is running against instead of having to run around and see where the values are coming from. Put
Yeah,
everything in front of the engineer that's going to read the code after you. They're going to appreciate you. They're going to go and see this is your reputation. When you build code and people see your name on that code, they say, yeah, if Ricardo is the one writing this code, it's probably going to be standardized. It's going to be something that's easy to understand and easy to read. So,
especially if this theory data is going to be used only for this test
mhm.
only. So yeah, it would make sense. Yeah.
Well, technically for now, because we need to do the ad for the post, right? So it's going to be,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is why I wanted to take that advantage to show you this, but also just kind of give you. So these are the two things that I use most of the time. There's hard-coded values.
Yeah.
You'll see these all over our open source repositories, and you'll see these calculated values. You'll see both of them. Mainly when we're testing that a created date or an updated date is 1 minute before and after. Definitely you'll see the calculated values happening in there, and it's truly being used in across multiple places. Okay, what comes out of an API exception? Today you'll see a lot of people going and saying, oh, just make the API call and the data's coming in, and there is no way on God's green earth anything bad is going to happen. Let's just do a try catch. Just a good generic, good-hearted try catch and and log in there the entire stack and
Let
let
the
the
rest take care of
yeah.
itself. I mean, everything to move everything fast. But hey, that's
let's
how it
let's
goes.
let's deliver a project, call it a day. It's not my prop, not my job.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's bad. Let's not do that. so so this is one place. Instead, as you saw in different places when we're developing foundation services, and we are developing a foundation service here, is that we handle everything, Ricardo. Every potential possible issues that can occur out of a communication with an API, we need to handle that, and we need to work on making sure that we handle it properly and all that kind of stuff. For instance, let me give you an example. There will be a point in time where we go and say locked exception is supposed to be handled with a retry logic. So when someone is trying to post, we're going to try 3 times, right? We're going to try 3 times and we're going to tell our user, please wait, processing, right? It's more of an
Yeah.
eventual consistency kind of a situation. How can you possibly catch something like this if you're not, achieving the granularity level on the kind of errors are coming? What I have seen people do is that, you know, um, you would get a completely different error, right? Something like, let's say, the reference is invalid, right? But the exception handler doesn't care about the type of the local exception that's happening. It just knows that it needs to hammer the database 10 times anyway, whatever that exception is, because there's no localization categorization. So it hammers the database 10 times, and then the DevOps team go and say, oh, we're being DDoSed, block the entire application from communicating with the database. I'm telling you, I can tell you stories for days about bad practices.
Wow.
Anyway, it's just stories for people. That's where experience comes in. You tell stories. Why do we care? Why can't I just do a try catch and then a retry 10 times, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work? Well, because you can take down your entire stack because of
Mm,
one bad request, right? And if the
yeah.
security is done right, it will be immediately flagged as your IP of your app service will immediately be flagged as a DDoS attack and immediately gets blocked. Even if it's marked as trusted source, oh, I'm sorry, something happened. The resource got compromised. If security is done right, see, you're playing a wild card here because if the other guy on the other side, on the DevOps side, is also a moron, probably everything's gonna go right, right? If the guy that's sitting on the other side saying, we're being DDoSed, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. It's just,
You
oh
know, you put
well. Oh well.
you put one foot in front of the other and you hope for the best. Okay, so
Yeah.
go ahead, go ahead. You were going to say something. Go ahead. Mhm.
No, no, it's just it reminds me so many things right now. But
Yep,
yes, I totally agree with you on that point. And
yep,
again,
yep,
whenever I see you how you manage these exceptions, it's just makes
yep,
me want to keep learning from all of this and really
yep.
be more a
This is why
productive
we
person
call it
for this.
industrial, right? This is why we call it
Hmm.
industrial. This is why we say standardized, because this is some serious business. The people that are learning the software today might be entrusted to build something that is more critical than anything else in the world. They might be entrusted to build something related to maybe a spaceship or a power plant or something that's related to people's lives. And if we don't
Yep.
put the heart and soul into what we're doing, it can actually cause, we joke about this, but you and I know very well, and hopefully the people watching us, this is some serious business. Software is everywhere, and we need to kind of be able to handle these issues. All right, my friend, that's story time. Let's get to the stuff that we really want to work with. So, what are the exceptions? So, the first exception here is I always jump to the critical exception. You end up in a situation where you either unable to submit the request itself is invalid that you're passing in, or you are not authorized. You don't have the authorization to work with that exception that you're working with. So, what are these cases? Let's go up in here and do this. I hope that we have RESTful since installed in here. So let's see. Do we have RESTful? We should because we did an API broker. So we're gonna have these exceptions. Okay,
Yep.
let's start this way. So in here, I can go and say unauthorized exception, authorized exception, HTTP response exception, like this. And I can go here and say unauthorized HTTP response exception. This guy here. And if I do control period in here, I think it's called one sec. Let me find the exact word for it so I don't mess it up. So it's called unauthenticated HTTP response unauthorized exception. There it is. So this guy here. So that's the first one. HTTP response unauthorized connection. Where is this coming from? That's not native. That comes from that nice library called RESTful Sense. Okay, so this is that one. And this one requires what? It can take two things. It can take a problem detail, as you can see here, problem detail and response message, or it can just take a response message and a message, whatever you want to pass in.
Mm.
And I added these two fields in there because I'm setting up the flow or the pipeline for us to be able to work with problem details in the future and validate that this problem detail is actually being transcended across multiple places. We'll come back to this one in a second. Let's just get a random message in here. I'm going to go here and say, some message because it doesn't really matter here. So I'm going to go ahead and say get random message like this. And what else do I need? It asked me for an HTTP response, HTTP response, which is new HTTP response. And I think we could probably kind of simplify this a little bit, but we'll come back to this one. So this is response message. See response message like this. And this
Yeah.
is HTTP response message.
I think you added
Massage.
an extra R after the get random message. Or actually after the get from get random message.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
extra
right.
R. Yeah.
Yep, yep. Let's go and create a random message here real quick. So let me collapse that real quick, and let's just go here and say I want a random message, so I'm just gonna go here and say private static string get random message. Here is a mnemonic string, right? And then do I want to count? Probably word count, and let's get random number. Get random number, because it's gonna give me an actual message with words and everything. And then we're gonna say get value. Okay, cool. Let's focus here so people can see. And then I'm gonna give it the get random number thing. So private. Look at the UI. Look at the UI. What it's doing. Look. How
Yeah.
did it know? How did it know? So it saw this missing method here, and it said probably he's gonna go build this one, right?
Yep.
Anyway, that's some creepy stuff, man. I don't know about that. There's a 10 and this get value. All right, things are evolving. Things are evolving a lot, Ricardo. Okay, so this is a message. So I'm gonna go and say, okay, here's your response message, and here's your some message in here. Cool. So this is the unauthorized HTTP response message. Now I can get this calculate. This is a calculated value, right? Because I had to pass in, it's constructed, right? I had to pass in a bunch of things. And this guy returns an exception, right? So it's 3 data of an exception. That's the first one, right? There's also another one before, even before this one, the one that's called HTTP request exception.
Yeah.
New HTTP request exception. It's amazing how the world works, Ricardo, because just maybe about a month or two ago, HTTP request exception wasn't a thing that we're handling. And until this one new person I was training them and working with them, and they forgot something in the request, and boom, this exception happened. And this is why I always tell people, don't underestimate people that are working with you on the team, whether they have so much experience or so little experience, because they will expose the issues. And if you have a standard, you will eliminate this whole, oh, do they have experience, do they not have experience. It just eliminates all that nonsense. Okay, so this is the HTTP request exception that can come out of that. Now let me ask you a question. Do you think there's anything else that you can possibly think of that would cause any issues in terms of handling exceptions? Anything at all that you can think of that
Mm,
might be uh,
I mean, what about gateways? I mean, those are usually
bad
like
gateway?
bad gateways. Yeah.
That guy is not critical when we're gonna handle it later. But yeah, we're
Mm.
definitely gonna take care of it. We're gonna take care of it under something a little bit bigger than that. So let me ask you this, and this is my favorite part. This one took a little bit of work to figure out. You know, um, Imagine if the service that you're communicating with is down. When you hit the URL, what do you get back?
Uh, I would usually get an error message saying page not found
Yeah,
or the
URL not
service
found.
yeah, you're all not found.
404, right?
Yeah.
404.
Or yeah.
So that comes even between, by the way, I'm ordering these in their chronological order. So a request happens before unauthorized. You need to initiate a request before you actually authorize, right? But check this out. What about HTTP response URL not found exception? And that one was a pain in the rear to catch on RESTful Sense, because how do you determine the difference between 404, the ID that you're looking for is not found, versus 404, the entire API is not found? Let's talk about this for a second. So
Interesting.
you have two 404s, right?
Yeah.
When you hit with an ID, the API will respond back and say, sorry, this item is not found.
Yeah.
But also, and this is a little bit of a gap in the HTTP code. We need a special code for that, but it's too late now. Everything's already developed. So what I had to do is that I had to split hairs on the 404. So in RESTful sense, what I had to do is that I go and say, if the response has a body in it, then the
Mm.
API is alive and it's talking to you by giving you a body as a response. Because where's the body coming from? If the URL is not
Yeah.
found, there's nothing to give you a body. So I had to split hair there. Let me roll back a little bit. Why do we even care between 404 URL not found versus 404 the ID is not found? Why does it matter?
Well, it's like you were explaining. It's like for the ID one, you at least get some type of response, whether it's bad or good.
It's
Like
less
it didn't
critical,
find.
right?
Yeah,
But
but
if
in the
it's a
case,
URL not found,
yeah, it's definitely like, oh my god.
it's a critical issue, right?
Yeah.
So the severity in here is really, really important when it comes to determining between 104, 1404 versus the other 404. So that's why, my friend,
Shouldn't it have been like a subcode for that then?
there isn't, not that I know
There is.
of.
Oh.
If you found out, I'll give you 100 points and you'll get file profile for a standard change. That's literally what it is. There is people who can upgrade my standard, they get 100 points. That's like building 10 foundation services. And it truly is because your impact is going beyond just building an API endpoint. Okay. So
Mm,
if you find that, ping me. Okay, so HTTP response not found exception. That means I can go here and say HTTP response URL not found exception, and I can do the same thing. I say, okay, this is my HTTP response message, and I can go here and say some message because I really don't care what this
mm,
message is, not at this point in time. Cool deal, my friend. Okay.
Leo.
Okay, that means that this guy needs to go right in here. And now I have collected all the possible known critical exceptions that may happen when a particular client communicates with an API endpoint, assuming that the API endpoint is done right and it's communicating the right messages.
Mm,
Okay. Usually these ones are out of the box, so we're not going to have to worry too much about, people following the standardization when it comes to that. Okay. What that basically means, we can change this to go and say critical dependency
mm,
exceptions, right? These are the ones. They're cases, right? So I can go here and take this guy. The rest of this is very straightforward and you're already familiar with, but I'll show you. So I'm going to go here and say should throw critical dependency exception on remove if critical error occurs, and log it async.
I see.
There you go. What does this guy take as input parameter, Ricky? Takes an
It would
exception,
take exceptions. Yeah.
right? It takes exception as an input parameter, and it goes and says, this is my dependency exception, or rather critical dependency, critical dependency exception. Okay, cool. Given, when, then. Var failed post dependency exception. New failed post dependency exception. That takes in that critical dependency exception, right? So I need that
Yeah.
model. Let's move forward. I also need var expected post dependency exception. New post dependency exception that takes in the localized
So,
version.
yep.
Okay, let's fake an injury. Let's go here and say this.mock, which is my API. Set up. Let's set this guy up to make trouble. And here's my broker. And broker dot delete post by ID. Look at this. It is any ID because I don't care, right? I
Yeah.
need one, but I don't care. Like it's the one that is being passed. And then we can go here and say throws async, right? It seems like mock is not here yet. Let's pull that guy in. Or maybe we missed a thingy. Yeah, there it is. Throws what? Critical dependency exception. So
Yep.
the API is throwing these external models and we're mapping them into where we're localizing and categorizing them. Okay, what that basically means is I can go here and say value task post, right? Remove post by ID task like this. And then I can go here and say this dot service dot remove task by ID, right? And I can go up in here and say GUID some GUID right? Equal new GUID like this, and I can go here. Why is it some post ID, right? Some
Yeah.
post ID. Why? Because we don't really care. This is the one they were asking me about. When do we do this? Well, I'm
Yeah.
handling an exception, so I really don't care what's gonna happen outside of this stream in here. And then I can go here and say, okay, let's do await, assert, throws async, and now I want my post dependency exception like this. And now I can go and say remove post by ID task as task, just like this. Okay, what else is left? I want to verify that this guy has been called only once. So this dot mock API mock verify broker like this. Broker dot delete by ID. It is any GUID. Here it is. And then this guy is times once. Okay,
Now for
cool.
the login broker. Yep.
Yep, and then let's go here and say, yeah, there you go. And then I want my login broker, and we also need to verify the login broker have logged the right stuff. So this is login broker, verify, oops, verify, good catch, broker.log, log critical,
Mm.
right? It
Mm-hmm.
is same exception as, and I can go here and say expected post dependency exception, and this guy should be called times once.
Yep.
Okay, what else is left? Ricky, what do we need to do here? We need to create the models. That's probably be better. Let's go create these models. Failed post dependency exception. That's the localization. So let's go here under posts, create add class, failed post dependency exception. Have this guy inherit from exception. I hope we installed this one. I think we did. Of course we
Yep.
did. Let's add in a quick header in here. And then let's go here and say ctor. This guy doesn't really take anything. Actually it does. It takes an inner exception. So there's my exception, generic exception. And then in here, and then we can go here and say failed post dependency error occurred, contact support. And then we can go down here and say this is my inner exception, and I need a message in here. So here's my message for the name of the input parameter, since it doesn't really do that. So that's one. And then let's create the other one. The other one here is the post dependency.
Upon to dependency exception. Yeah.
That's right, post dependency exception. And this guy is gonna be like this. We're gonna inherit from exception like this. And then here's my ctor. It takes in an exception type. So that's my inner exception. And then I
Mm-hmm.
can go here and say post dependency error occurred,
Yeah.
contact support like this. And then I'm going to go here and say my inner exception. And in here, I'm going to put in the message. So this way we completely and utterly abstracted away and categorized and localized all that. That means that we need to just go back to the test and prove that our theory is true. We need to prove that our theory is true. So let's go here. So I have the theory, I have everything. Let's run this world and see how it works. Here we go. Looks like you and I are the first visitor of this planet, of this project. So we're kind of we're setting the precedence here for everybody. So let's see here if this guy needs to fail, needs to have to give us a good failure. AI assisted IntelliCode. Yes, enable it. Okay, so I have a failing test. I have two failing tests. Did I not get latest from master? Let's see. I probably didn't. Let me do this. So this guy here is failing good. It's failing for a good reason, but I need to sync up with master as well. So let me go here. I forgot to sync up with master. You did make that test pass though, right? So this is fail. Let's sync up. So sync.
Trying to remember like what was the last time that we did this? Like if I did the failing or the passing one. I think
We'll
I did
see.
the failing test.
Yeah, if that's the case,
Yeah.
I'll just make it pass. That's okay. No biggie. We're not scared of unit tests, right?
No. No.
There you go. Oh, you should see, if you're not familiar with unit tests, people be like, "Oh my God, unit tests, come on, man, let's just get it done. Just a job. It's a job, Ricky. What are you making a big deal out of it? You know? All right, man, we're all synced up. You're it.
All right,
Let's go to town. Make it rain.
let's make it rain. Okay, let's share here. Let me just get the latest and greatest.
Uh-huh.
All right,
All right, my friend. Here you are. Okay.
let me just run the test.
If you have
Should
one failing test, you're in the right place.
yeah. Should get the text explorer here. Where is it?
Mm-hmm.
You say yes, enable it.
Yep, we're all going into this whole we're buying into this whole All right, let's see. So if you go to view and type in test view, it'll show it for you. Yep, view, clickety click.
Yeah, this is for some reason it's not. Oh, I see. So it was on dock on the other side of my window.
That's okay. Let's run.
Yeah, yeah, it's running now.
So right now we're going on the right track, I think. We'll see. Let's go.
Come on.
Uh-huh. I love this StreamYard stuff. They have so many different options. It's pretty cool. What does this do? Oh, just kind of close up, kind of. Nice. See, don't give an engineer buttons. They'll just click all of them. All right, man. Cool.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
still. I
All
think I'm
right.
getting the same kind of situation as last time.
Like getting stuck?
Yeah,
Do this. Click on test and click stop or something. No, I think it's just something. What is your machine powered with? Fossil fuel? Is that what it? No, it's not gonna let you stop it now. We're just gonna have to
yeah.
wait.
It's an i5, so it's I mean
It's i5? Okay,
yeah,
cool. Yeah, i5 is not so bad, and with this 64-bit thing, it should kick it off.
yeah,
I wonder if you have anything like post-process, pre-process installed that's holding it. But this is a brand new install of Visual Studio 2, right?
yeah.
All right. Let's wait. I guess we're gonna need to spend a little bit of quality time together, Ricky. That's what it is. That's what that means. That's the universe way of telling us, talk to each other. Not everything is code. Gosh darn it.
Interesting talk on your podcast. Well, it was what was Golan? The
Go,
Golan, yeah.
oh, Golan. Oh yeah, you saw that
Yeah,
one? Yeah,
yeah,
that one was very interesting. You never know like what these things are gonna turn out to be, but I'm glad, like I had fun talking to these folks, and
mhm,
it was pretty cool. I like people a lot. I do like to talk to people, for no reason or for a reason or no reason. So when a bunch of people tell you, "Hey, come over to talk," that's like a kid in a candy store. You're just literally telling me, "Come do what you already are doing." Anyway, they were pretty nice people, and I'm glad people got to see it. And a lot of people said to me, "Hassan, we didn't see that side of you before." I was like, "Okay, great. This is that side of me now. I'm a real person. I'm not an AI." Anyway, while this is loading, seems like it's taking time. Let me ask you this: did you take a look at the Git file new update for the guidance? So I added new things where people can
yeah.
go and say, I hope that kind of flies through and all that. I think people are gonna find this. So now I'm baking in the mentoring aspect, and reading aspect and all that. Oh, look, it's working now. Let's go. Yep. Okay, the commercial break is over. All right.
All right, pending critical sync, multiple. Yep, all for the right reasons. So let's just go this guy, post this here, and let's just go to the broker. So hope I don't forget. Nope. Control F12. There we go. All right. So we got the delete sync. So
Mm,
So should we try to do the same kind of deal for the same as any foundation service? Create the
exactly the same.
validation. Yeah.
Exactly the same, except that you're not working on the broker side, you're working on the foundation service side.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. All right.
No, 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 you're in the broker area.
Oh,
You're
I
not
am.
supposed to be here. You're not I think you went in the broker instead of going into the
Oh,
foundation. So do
my bad.
control minus, it'll take you back to the where you were.
Yeah.
One more? No, no, I think you're doing it's control minus. Control minus.
Yeah.
What the heck? What is it? Why is it doing that? How about control shift minus then?
No.
Hover over that back button at the top and tell me what shortcut it's giving you. Control minus. I'm not crazy,
Yeah.
you're crazy.
Let's remove. Yeah. Sorry.
Anyways, you're fine. Okay, there you go. And it
There we
looks
go.
like the try catch is already there. So all you gotta do is
Yeah.
just do the localization categorization.
I keep doing this. Keep forgetting. All right. Yes. So I believe the is
Yeah.
called failed post dependency exception.
You think so? So what exception are we trying to catch first? Let's go back to the test real quick. What exception occurs out of the broker?
Okay. See what I miss here.
What comes out of the broker here?
Um,
Hmm.
a critical dependency exception would be.
And what are these? These are
Oh,
these
right,
ones, right?
right,
So these are the
right.
ones that you have to handle, brother. These
Yeah,
three ones. Mm.
yeah. So they would have to be
Mm.
uh HTTP request exception, HTTP
Yep,
response zero.
that's right.
Um,
In that exact order too. Yep. Hmm.
so interesting enough, I saw a post that you put on LinkedIn about
Hmm.
how to like categorize these exceptions using the
Right.
when using and then an or with it,
Right, right. That's only for
right?
inner exceptions. That's something that you and I gonna see when we start building orchestration or coordination services. When you have multiple services and all of them throw not found exception, like you'll see not found student exception, not found teacher exception, and not found library card exception. This is when you need to do
Mm,
that or pattern. But in here, you won't be able to do that.
ah, okay. Uh, did I write right? Let's see. Let me just. That was the request, of course. I'll just do this.
That's right.
Yeah, and then let's just put an HTTP request exception.
Hmm.
And then I do throw create and log. I guess it would be critical
Hmm.
um post
Hmm.
uh
Dependency exception.
dependency.
You
Yeah.
can just go and say create unlock critical dependency exception. You don't have to mention the entity because you're already within that context. Like you're
Oh,
already within that context of post. So you don't have to do that.
critical dependency. And then we pass in the HTTP exception.
Hmm.
All right. We'll just generate the met. I believe this. Yeah, this is exception, so it should be exception.
That's right.
Although, shouldn't it return the
You
exception
should
exception
yep,
from?
you should return post dependency exception. Nope, nope. It should
Oh,
take
post.
in, yeah, post dependency exception, but you should take in exception with the X, yes.
Okay, sorry, I kind of got lost there. Yeah, post dependency exception. Then we take in the exception. Yeah.
That's right.
It could
Let's
be
call it
then.
exception. Yeah,
Yeah,
just call it exception. Yeah.
exception. And do exception. Can I convert? What's going on here? Post dependency exception.
No, 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 you're fine. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay.
It's yelling at you because you still need to localize it. We'll come back to that in a second.
Okay. Okay. Fail post exception. Cool.
No, 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 no.
No.
In this level here, you want to build just like the one below it. You do post dependency exception, right? Like the one below it does post validation. You're doing post dependency exception, right?
Right.
So that's one. And then you're passing in that inner exception to it. No problem there, right?
Let me just
Uh-huh.
post dependency exception.
Yep.
All right. So this is where we just you the this login broker log critical. And then we pass in the post dependency exception. Yeah. And then we just return the post dependency exception. Yeah, because we're already categorizing this. Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Yep.
Okay, so what's missing up there that's making the HTTP request exception unable to be passed in as parameter?
Well, I guess we would need to cast it to the
You need to
exception, right?
localize first.
Right.
Let's try that.
So this is where we use the fail post.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Correct.
And then I'll just put this in the line. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
And then now we're
now we
gonna
need
do.
two more of these.
Yep. And it would be for the HTTP response.
That's right.
So patch HTTP response URL not found exception. And then I guess that we can do something similar to this. So
That's right.
I'll just write it just for practice. This fail post exception.
Failed post dependency exception. The same thing for the one above it. Right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Post dependency exception, new fail post. And then we pass in the and go in, create dependency exception, and then we pass in the exception. And I guess it's this here, and what am I missing? Restrictions. All right, and I believe there's one more to go, and that is HTTP response unauthorized exception. the HTTP response unauthorized exception.
That's right.
Localize this again.
Yep.
Failed post dependency exception. No. Failed post dependency exception. HTTP response unauthorized exception.
Mhm.
Localize it, and then we throw the create and log critical dependency exception passing the localize exception.
That's right. So just a tiny bit of, a change there. URL not found, there's an extra O there. Take it out.
Oh, there is.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
There you go. Now run the test and let's see if that actually works.
Let's hope so, right?
Yeah, I hope so. Let's assume that it passes. Let's go. Oh man, is this guy gonna get stuck again? No, it's fine. Yeah.
All
Boom.
right.
Magic. Okay, now you get to make a commit that says and claims that our API communication is bulletproof. We're actually catching every possible issue that could happen in our system in terms of criticality. There's still more. We're still gonna have to handle locked exception and all that good stuff, but we'll come back to this one in a bit.
Oh, wait. I was supposed to put another pin. A pad.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing, my friend. We need, all I want from you, this is just a little assignment for you for the night. Tomorrow, before we start our session, come back ready with a failing test because I did a failing test, you made it pass. Now it's your turn to give me a failing test so I can make it pass and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
What do you think? So the next exception that we could possibly receive, let's just assume we made a successful API communication, right? So the URL
Hmm.
is fine, we are authorized, and the request is fine. The first thing that you could possibly receive from the API is after you have established successful communication. What do you think it is?
I'm sorry, you kind of cut off over there. I didn't
Yeah,
really
let's
hear
let let's
hear you.
yeah yeah, no worries. So here's the thing. When we went and built our API controller,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
We handled all the authorization, all the mid-layer stuff that can prevent us from communicating with your API. But on your API side, on the controller side, what's the first exception that occurs from your API side, on the controller level? What's the first one that we threw in there? Do you remember?
Um. Well, it was trying to validate for
A
the
validation
the
exception.
yeah.
A
Okay.
validation exception, right?
Yeah.
So I want you to think about all the possible error codes. So there is a bad request exception that might come to us through the API, right? Think about writing a test that carries that bad request, localize it into uh, invalid exception, and think about passing the problem detail in. Let's just start with invalid. So you're getting a bad request,
Yeah.
right? And then we localized it into what? What do you think?
The opposed validation exception for
Yeah, so
yeah.
so so it's gonna be wrapped in a what we call dependency validation exception because it's not your
Uh.
validation work that you did. It's a
Yeah.
dependency that did that validation work for you, and you want to point out to the dependency validation exception. But we
It's
still want, but we still want to carry the problem details. If the ID is bad, we want to carry that problem and carry it forward to the UI, right? So just
right.
think about that. Try to write a failing test. Don't commit it. Just write a one failing test and try to come tomorrow with a test that basically says, if a bad request occurs, we're going to handle it as a dependency validation exception and we're going to localize it. What are you going to localize it to? And how are you going to work that out? Try it out in code and we will connect. We will connect tomorrow. Does that make
Sounds
sense?
interesting. Yeah, sure.
Ricardo, thank you so very much for hanging out with me today. Thank you everyone for watching us through this amazing session as usual. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to drop a comment in the section and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you tomorrow. Thank you, Ricardo. Take care.
Take care.